Welcome to the Story Geeks podcast. I'm Daryl.
I'm Jay, and today we're going to hash it out over delayed sequels, which of course is inspired by Blade Runner 2049.
That's right. So this is, again, one of our new formats here on the Story Geeks podcast. And we're calling it Hash It Out for now. But man, if you guys have any other ideas for what this thing could be called, we've been through so many titles, so we would love to hear from you. We are not unwilling to change the title, so give us Facebook comments, send us emails at hi@reclamationsociety.org, comment on the YouTube video, anywhere. We'll keep an eye on all of it. So, but what we're going for here is there are a lot of podcasts out there designed for geeks to argue with each other. And this is not unlike those, but our goal here is actually to sort of celebrate different opinions and leave room for opinions and different ways of enjoying things rather than just fighting about what's best and coming to some level of a conclusion. So the spirit here is not to make one person right and one person wrong, but just to enjoy talking about different opinions.
If you enjoy trolling people, you will hate this podcast.
Yes. So, as Jay mentioned, today's topic is delayed sequels inspired by Blade Runner 2049, which we will get into that, and we'll have Jay explain the rules a little bit. But before we do that, let's take a brief minute to talk about Blade Runner 2049 and talk about how do we feel about it as a delayed sequel.
Yeah. A sequel that happens 30 years after the original.
Yes. Yeah. So we saw it together.
We did.
A couple nights after it came out, I think.
Yep.
So what's your take on it, Jay?
I really enjoyed it. I think what's interesting about it is it's a very true sequel. In other words, if you are irritated by the first movie or if you love the first movie, the second movie will feel the same to you. It's sort of more of the same. So if you felt like it was too slow, then you're going to feel like the second one's too slow. If you love the aesthetic of the first one, then you're going to love the graphic, the kind of portrayal of the world in the second one. Like, you'll love both. Really fantastic from that perspective. I'm a fan of Blade Runner. I do think it's a little slow at times, but I love that it's essentially an art house film that's also a science fiction film. Like, we don't get that very often. So I think that's fantastic. I love the fact that it is its own genre, and I like science fiction noir, and the art house aspect of it. And to be honest, like, Denis Villeneuve, I believe, I don't know how to say the dude's name.
At least you tried that time.
I tried, yeah. But he is so
What's your
amazing.
old pronunciation? It's Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah.
I think it's Denis Villeneuve. You have to have some sort of a French accent to be able to say it. Right? Yeah.
You should just say it. Just mumble it and it sounds better.
Yeah.
But I think that he just does such a fantastic job of not only staying true to the original, but directing this world in such a way that's super compelling.
Yeah, I agree. He definitely recaptured it, like with the same sort of excellence that like J.J. Abrams recaptured the Star Wars universe with The Force Awakens. And you're right. If you love stuff about the original, you'll love stuff about this one, which I think is my problem. Because there are things about the original that I don't love.
Exactly.
And consequently, I don't love them about this one either.
Right.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was, it's beautifully made. Technically and proficiently, it's a gorgeous movie. And Ryan Gosling does a really good job. He's one of those actors that I tend to just not like. But this movie and La La Land are kind of starting to turn that around a little bit for me.
Sure.
But I think it's a little heavy-handed stylistically. I think it could have been a lot shorter if we would have sacrificed some of Denis' style for the sake of story and pacing.
Yeah.
I love... Once it gets to Harrison Ford, then I'm like hooked.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen until at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours into the movie. It takes 2 forever.
Hours. Yeah, it's a long time.
So certain aspects of it I totally enjoyed. I loved how they reconnected back to the old movie.
Yep.
I thought Harrison Ford did a great job of doing a advanced version of Deckard, and the callbacks to Rachel. I won't get too specific, but the callbacks to Rachel and some of the stuff they did was just brilliant.
It was one thing that you should do, because I've kind of agreed with you on Ryan Gosling. He seems very smug, even in real life. He seems like a very smug person.
Yeah.
I just don't think he is. I think that's just a persona that he puts off.
It's the same problem that Brad Pitt had
Yeah,
years ago.
exactly.
I
Right.
hated Brad Pitt, and then Seven came out,
Right.
and 12 Monkeys came out,
Yep.
and A River Runs Through It is another really good movie.
I think
that he was
what they're
in.
doing is they're breaking the mold of what you would assume Hollywood would have for them.
Yeah.
And then you see them in a new light, and you're like, wait a minute. But I will tell you, if you have not seen the SNL sketch called Papyrus.
Oh, yeah. From his most recent appearance.
SNL appearance, as of the recording of this podcast. He does this hilarious skit, and he totally sells it the entire time. It's really worth your watch. It's called Papyrus. It's a SNL skit with Ryan Gosling in
Yeah.
it. It's fantastic.
He's hosted that show a couple of times, and I really enjoy him because he sucks at it. He breaks constantly. He laughs at everything.
Yeah, exactly.
He can't keep up the
It's the
face.
best.
It's really entertaining.
He does
to
really
watch.
sell the Papyrus, though. He's really good, because it's a short. It's not a live. It's not
Yeah.
done live. It's a short.
But in the spirit of this specific topic, how do you feel Blade Runner held up as a sequel that takes place 30 years?
Oh yeah,
after
so
the
I think it's
original film?
fantastic. I think
Okay.
it fills all of the right gaps in that 30-year period, and I think that it works really, really well. It's like stepping back right into the world, but not in a way that is. It didn't try to kind of break out of the vibe of the early one. It just went with the vibe of the early one, but yet it's telling a really fascinating story, as fascinating or even perhaps more fascinating than the original story.
I think much more fascinating.
See, yeah.
Which is one of my frustrations. I think the idea for the movie is awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know if we should spoil that here or not. Should we say spoilery things?
Probably not. We probably shouldn't say
Okay.
things.
I want to talk about it. But
Yeah, well, we'll have another podcast.
that's
on it
true.
for
That's
sure.
true. I love the idea, but I feel like the idea is convoluted in a
Yes.
lot of the style. Mm-hmm. I get some of the idea of Ryan Gosling's like digital girlfriend, and stuff like that. But that was focused on too much, and
Yeah.
there's certain reveals that were strong but could have been stronger if done different ways.
Sure,
and
sure.
So,
I got you.
yeah. So, all right. So that is how we feel about Blade Runner 2049. And inspired by that, we are now going to talk about movies that we think deserve the same treatment.
Yep.
But we have set up some rules for that. So
We
tell
have
us
some
about that.
rules. Yeah, we have some rules. So definitely inspired by this delayed sequel, if you will. For lack of a better word, we couldn't come up with a great word for it. We do have these rules. The first rule is that the movie must have been released before the year 2000. So you'll see in our lists, all the movies are released before the year 2000. The sequel should be set in the present day, with an equal amount of time passing between the original and the sequel as actually occurred in real life.
So if the original occurred in the future,
Or
like
the
it doesn't have
past.
to be present day. But
Correct.
the same amount of time has
That's
to
a
have
good
passed.
clarification, yeah. None of the movies that we're actually talking about are allowed to have had sequels themselves. So
Yeah.
we're dealing with films that had no sequels, they were standalone films, and then they've remained standalone films.
So we can't just pitch another Star Wars movie.
Exactly, right, exactly. Because I would.
Yeah.
That's the problem. There's no using dead actors or dead directors. So if somebody has passed away between the first film and what we're calling the sequel, then we would have to adjust for that. And each film will give a brief pitch about what that film would kind of be about, and we will select directors, and to a certain extent, we'll select some of the cast as well. So those are the rules.
Those are the rules.
Yeah.
I love having rules. It makes this all more fun.
Yeah.
So why don't you kick us off? Why don't you give us your first sequel?
Okay. So the number 3 option. So I'm going to work. These are obviously going to work in order of what I'd like to see the most.
Okay.
So this is the number 3 option, and that is The Princess Bride. We've not seen a Princess Bride sequel. Here's my pitch. Here's my log line plus a little bit of extra detail for what the Princess Bride sequel would look like. Fred Savage is now playing a father who is reading a book to his daughter, a new Princess Bride adventure to his daughter. Inigo Montoya has been slain And his headstrong daughter, Anissa Montoya.
You took Mandy Patinkin out of the movie?
He's gone. He's done.
I do not condone that.
Yeah, he's done. He's out. So she takes off on a journey to find her father's murderer and bring him to justice. But what she doesn't know and what she doesn't realize is that she'll end up falling in love with the man who she believes to be the one that killed her father. Although she'll discover in that only by working together will they find the true killer, who is Vizzini, which is played by Wallace, I believe his name is.
Wallace Shawn,
who is brought back from the dead by a necromancer.
He died in the first one.
He died in that film.
Yeah.
And the director of this film, which I would love to see, would be Peter Jackson.
Really?
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. I think that would be phenomenal.
I think any movie that has a necromancer in it could appropriately be directed by Peter Jackson.
Maybe so.
Or maybe Guillermo del Toro.
Well, that would be super insane and give everyone nightmares.
So is there no Princess Buttercup, no Wesley?
Well, part of this might be that the Wesley Buttercup son is the one that she thinks killed her father.
Okay.
And so that's the love
So they're in
relationship.
there.
Yeah, I think so.
Because Robin Wright's killing it nowadays.
Yeah.
She was in Blade Runner.
Yeah.
So she could come back.
Robin Wright, just as a total aside, I love it when Robin Wright is in a film. So I'm probably going to like this film.
Wonder Woman?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman, yep, absolutely.
And I know we haven't seen Cary Elwes in a while, but he's still alive.
Yeah, why not?
Why not bring him back?
Exactly. Bringing him back, him and Jim Carrey in like a liar situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
You can't bring Andre the Giant back, though. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
He was really funny in that movie.
No. Just get Drax. Dave Bautista.
Dave
Just have him show up. He's doing all the other movies.
What about Billy Crystal?
Ooh, yeah. It'd be great to have Billy Crystal back in there. What role does he play in the first film, though?
He's like the... Oh, shoot. I don't know. What is he? Like a wizard or an alchemist who kind of like...
Oh, sure.
Helps
He's all
disguise
made up.
them to get in.
Yeah, so Princess Bride, that was my number 3, directed by Peter Jackson. Have some of the cast come back, those who are still with us and all that kind of stuff. But
that's a good choice.
What's your number 3? Choice.
I didn't assign rankings to these, so let me take a quick look and decide what I think my number 3 should be. Okay. So this is going to sound a little weird.
Okay.
But go with me.
All right.
My number 3 choice is Spaceballs.
Nice. I see where you're going.
Yeah.
I like
okay.
it.
So here's what you get out of this. You get, it fits the rules.
Yep.
It was released in the 80s. It has no sequels to it.
Right.
And you have this whole new realm of Star Wars films
to make fun of,
in which to spoof.
Right.
But our rules dictate a certain amount of passage of time.
Yeah.
So we're not going to go prequels on this. We're going to go straight to the Force Awakens, Last Jedi world.
I like it.
So Bill Pullman will come back. Daphne Zuniga will come back. Rick Moranis will come back.
Nice.
I know Darth Vader is supposed to be dead and whatnot, but we're going to find a way to bring Dark Helmet back into this movie.
We got to have him in there.
Which will be awesome because Rick Moranis doesn't act much anymore. He was retired for years and recently did something. But it'll be really cool to get him on screen again.
That'd be awesome.
Obviously, we lost John Candy.
Right.
So we can't have him. So the way we're going to get around that is by saying that Barf, John Candy's character, has become even more dog-like to where you can't recognize him as a human anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking maybe we'll have like Kevin James play him. So he's still got like that kind of, he's a husky dude, but he's got physicality and can do crazy stunts and stuff like that. Mel Brooks will return as Yogurt. And then we're going to bring in 2 new characters.
Okay.
At least 2.
Yeah.
Inspired by Rey and Kylo Ren.
Nice.
I don't know what their names would be, and that doesn't matter, but the Rey character will be played by Anna Kendrick.
Okay.
And then the Kylo Ren character, to really play up the whole, like, pent-up, angsty teen, emo, my grandfather's dead.
I hope you're going to say the name I'm thinking of now.
Oh, now I want to know what you're thinking
No,
of.
you say it first. You say it first.
I don't think it's going to be what you think it is.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Andy Samberg because I think he can play that really well.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I was going to say Michael Cera, but I think Andy Samberg is even better. Yeah.
So And then, so I looked into this a little bit. It doesn't look like Mel Brooks is really directing movies anymore. He just does voice work.
Okay.
Guy's in his 90s at this point.
Whoa, okay.
So,
Nice.
Yeah. So rather than that, and rather than go with one of like these modern film directors who are the gross out comedies are big nowadays.
Yeah.
Your Todd Phillipses, your Adam McKays,
Judd Apatow.
your Judd Apatow, Paul Feig,
yeah.
these kind of guys.
Sure.
We're not going to go with any of that.
Okay.
We're going to go with something a little bit cleaner and somebody who has shown great aptitude for spoofing Star Wars in the past.
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
But Seth Green and Matthew Senreich.
That would be
I don't know
awesome.
if that's how you say his name, but the creators of Robot Chicken.
That would be awesome.
So,
I would love to see that movie.
That's what it is. Story-wise, it would spoof The Force Awakens. I think we could
have to kind of spoof the original Spaceballs to a degree too, because people say it's adult derivative, and it had to be derivative of that one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we could throw some prequel references in.
Yeah.
And make fun of those in a good way.
Yeah.
But so that's my number 3.
I would want to see that film. I'm down for that. Yeah. All right, my number 2 then. So my number 2 is from. I think this is maybe an obscure film. So do you remember The Game?
Yeah.
Oh, dude,
Michael
love
Douglas?
that film. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I love that film. So here's the deal. I think that Michael Douglas comes back, but he's a character who's older now, and he's kind of become disenfranchised with life. He's not sure if life has anything for him in the remaining time he has here. He's not sure if his life is valuable anymore. He's feeling life slip away from him. But then he wakes up to find himself experiencing this really weird, interesting world that he's never seen before because he's younger and he's playing another game, but this time it's inside a CGI world. So it's sort of more like a Matrix type of a deal. It's not like the normal world around him, but it's similar in that it's a similar type of game that's meant to teach him something about his life and about what dying might be like and what living is really truly like.
Sure.
So that's kind of what this film would be about. He learns to appreciate love and appreciate the life he has remaining, so that when he goes to the real world, he has a deep, meaningful experience. And the director for this film, I think, should be Denis Villeneuve.
Hey.
Because I think that he would be able to do it justice.
Who directed the original? Was it Fincher?
I believe it was Fincher, but I'm going to look it up as we talk about it.
All right. Yeah, Denis would really get the moodiness going.
Exactly. He'd have the moodiness going. That came out in 1997, by the way, so it just fits right underneath our...
Totally
Yeah, it was
fits.
David Fincher. It was David Fincher.
Okay.
I think that would be a really fascinating thing, because I haven't seen a film that has intrigued me as much as that film did. Because you just were
really
watching it and you're just like, what am I watching and what is happening?
Yeah.
And really done well. So I think it deserves a sequel.
All right. I like it. So my number 2 is The Goonies.
Oh, nice.
So
Very nice.
now I know you and I were talking earlier, and you referenced somebody telling you that The Goonies has a sequel.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Okay.
There was a video game called The Goonies 2. That doesn't count.
Okay,
It's a
fine.
video
That's
game.
fair.
It's not a movie.
Yeah. No, video
And
game
there's
doesn't
been
count.
talk of a sequel for
Ever.
years.
Yeah.
And there is a sequel listed on IMDb, but it's one of those things that may or may not happen.
Right.
I've seen the cast get together and talk about it.
Yeah.
And essentially say, no, it's probably not going to happen. Like, we'd all love to do it, but it would have to be just right.
Right.
You
right,
know?
Right.
So, but I think I might have it just right.
Nice.
We'll see.
Nice.
So
it should be noted too. These are we're giving all movies that are geek movies.
Yeah.
And The Goonies is a geek movie.
Totally.
The Game in this context would be a geek movie.
Yeah.
Princess Bride would be a geek. So just saying, we're staying within geekdom here too.
Right. Which is why we both avoided Breakfast Club.
I had a way to make that.
I want to hear about it later.
Yeah.
Okay, so The Goonies, sequel to The Goonies. This takes place in present day. A lot of times when we create these sequels, you look at Ryan Gosling in Blade Runner 2049.
Mm-hmm.
You look at other versions of this, like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull brought in.
Right.
I hate him so much I can't even remember his name right
Shia
now.
LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf,
Yeah,
thank you.
All you had
And
to
they
say was,
always-
I hate him so much. I knew who it was.
They bring in these new characters
Yeah.
to try and breathe life. We're not going to do that. We're
Okay.
going to rely on our original Goonies for this movie. So this movie stars Sean Astin, Josh Brolin, Corey Feldman, Ki Kwan, and Jeff Cohen. who I don't think has acted since the Goonies.
Oh wow!
So hopefully
he's up for it.
He's up for it.
Yeah.
So here's my pitch.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So everybody pretty much knows the Goonies, right? Do we have to give a brief synopsis on what the Goonies was about?
Maybe just real brief.
Okay,
one sentence.
because it was made in the 80s.
Yeah.
80 something.
Yeah.
And so it's basically about this group of kids who are these geeky friends in a town that is kind of being bought up by this corporation, and they're in danger of losing their house because they can't afford to pay off these guys.
Right.
And they find this treasure map in their dad's attic. Josh Brolin plays the older brother of the main character, Mikey. And they decide to go after this treasure map, thinking maybe this is real, and try to go find this treasure so they can save their houses.
Yeah.
Which, in the end, they do.
Yep.
So, what happens in that movie, however, is they find... So there's this pirate named One-Eyed Willie.
Uh-huh.
And they find One-Eyed Willie's ship in this giant underground cavern.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these gold coins, jewels, everything, all throughout the kind of the secret room in this ship. But in the end, they're being chased by criminals.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can't get it all. And the ship actually... The cavern starts to break apart, and the ship floats out and disappears. But luckily, one of them had kept some jewels, and that was enough to save their houses.
Perfect.
But the ship is gone.
Yeah.
As are the criminals, and one of which was this character named Sloth, who is sort of this like deformed guy who is, mentally underdeveloped, and like he's kind of beastly.
Okay.
And they mistreat him and keep him chained up in the basement.
Sounds awful.
But in the Goonies, he befriends this character named Chunk, played by Jeff Cohen.
Oh, yeah.
And they become buddies, and he becomes a hero and helps save everybody and stuff like that.
Okay.
So there's all
your
of the
synopsis.
context you need.
Yep.
Now, we're fast forward to present day. 3 of the kids are still together and are grown up now.
Yeah.
Mikey, played by Sean Astin, Mouth, played by Corey Feldman, and Data, played by Ki Kwan, who was kind of like a little Korean James Bond, sort of.
Oh, nice.
He had all these gadgets and stuff like that. Maybe more like Inspector Gadget.
Okay.
But they are still together and have spent their lives trying to find One-Eyed Willie's ship.
Okay.
To the point where they have severed ties with their families. They are regarded as these crazy treasure hunters.
I like this.
Who have just lost their minds. And they're just living the Goonies dream and trying to find this ship. Chunk, played by Jeff Cohen, who was the 4th kid, has separated from them.
Okay.
He doesn't want to do that. He wants to live a more reasonable life. Even if you watch the Goonies, he was the one that was always like, we shouldn't do this, let's go home, and he's like, let's go eat a pizza, because he's this little fat kid. Nowadays, he's not.
Okay.
And then Brant, who is Josh Brolin's character, who is the older brother of Mikey, is also just kind of living his life and not in a whole lot of contact with them. So they've been spending their whole lives trying to find this ship with no success. Mm-hmm. And basically they get crazier and crazier as time goes by, which works really well to put Corey Feldman back in the movie.
Just play yourself, dude.
Yeah, he's allowed to be as crazy as he really is. But now they come across a lead where Sloth has actually, he's dead now, but he's left something behind to help find the ship.
Nice.
But since he spent the majority of his time with Chunk, only Chunk would understand what he's left behind. So they have to go back and find Chunk and make him agree to take place in this, which they do by talking to Brant, and suddenly you have all of your guys back together again.
Nice.
And we're not going for some higher purpose or anything like this. Is straight up treasure hunting. And they're just hunting for the treasure. And this movie, Richard Donner's in his 80s now. He directed the original, and I don't think he wants to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like maybe he's not up for this. But when you watch The Goonies, it feels like a Spielberg film. So let's just go for it and let Spielberg direct this sequel.
Got it.
So that's my number 2.
I dig it. I'd be down to watch that film. I think that's really interesting. I also really like that you're bringing back all of the characters that are available to you. Who would be the villains? Like, who would be trying to combat them as they're looking for the treasure?
I don't know. Danger. the ship, of where it is. I don't know. Like the elements could be the villains.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, some of the villains from the original movie are still around. Like Joe Pantoliano was one of them.
Yeah.
Robert Davi, I'm not sure if he's still alive or not. The mother, I don't remember the actress's name who played her, but I know she's deceased at this point. So you could maybe bring them
Carrie
back
Green?
in.
Martha Plimpton?
No, they were the kids. It was...
Mama Fratelli?
Yeah.
Anne Ramsey?
Anne Ramsey. I was going to say that. I should have just said it. So I don't know. I don't know what the danger is, but it kind of doesn't matter because the joy is in these characters all coming back together again.
I like it. I like it a lot.
So.
All right, you ready for my number one?
I'm ready.
Okay. Roger Rabbit. Now, here's the thing. I did not like that movie as a kid. I've rewatched it as an adult, and I really like it. So here's my premise, though. Toontown has been forgotten by the real world because we're kind of seeing a lack of 2D animation. There's some 2D animation still out there, but it's like pretty not as much of it out there.
Yeah.
So Toontown has been forgotten by the real world, and it's suffering for it. So it's starting to go into economic disarray, and some of that kind of stuff is starting to become a little bit less nice.
Or you could go like a whole weirder route and say that it's like totally Asian inspired now because the only 2D animation that's still surviving is anime.
Exactly. So there's elements of that there that's like kind of taking over, but some of like the more the happier stuff is kind of like not there anymore.
Yeah.
And people have really traded in tunes for this new land that's out there, which is the 3D animated figures from CGville.
CGville, okay.
But one of CGville's biggest stars, Mr. Potato Head, has been murdered.
This makes me feel a lot better about Spaceballs. I was afraid that Spaceballs was too goofy.
No,
you're making me feel good.
This is awesome. So Mr. Potato Head is murdered. His body parts have been strewn everywhere, and they keep finding him everywhere. And now Roger Rabbit, who's down on his luck because, unfortunately, Jessica Rabbit has passed away, is being blamed. Him and several tunes from Toontown are being blamed as the people who are jealous of the new 3D characters.
All right.
And have come back into that world and murdered them. But Eddie Valiant's son, because of course the actor
Bob Hoskins is dead.
Bob Hoskins has died. So Eddie Valiant's son, Eddie Jr., and Roger Rabbit's son, Reese Rabbit, don't believe that Roger did it. So together, the two of them are going to navigate the human world. They're also going to navigate CGville, and they're going to even be in Toontown to find Mr. Potato Head's real killer, who they discover in the end is really Sid from Toy Story.
Oh my gosh.
So that is the movie wrapped up in a nutshell, and I would love to have this directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller.
Yeah.
I think that would be fantastic. They would do a great job of applying all of these things in a funny way. You could bring in the Lego characters. You could bring in the classic characters. You can bring in...
It's like the kids' version of Ready Player One.
Exactly. It's like a kid version of Ready Player One. So that is my number one. I'd love to see that film. I think it'd be really interesting. We're just lacking a lot of the classic animation. We don't see that anymore. I'd love to see it.
So will there be both in this? Like, will Roger Rabbit be 2D, but Sid is 3D?
Exactly. It'd be 3D, 2D, and real world. And it'd be all of that wrapped into one.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
It sounds better than Roger Rabbit.
Well, I think it could be, because I think Roger Rabbit suffered from... Because Disney at that time was trying to figure out, like, what's Touchstone, what's Disney, right? Like,
yeah.
And it kind of, I think, suffered from a lack of kid-friendliness.
It was really dark.
It got really dark.
It was really evil.
And I think that this needs to kind of solve for some of that by being... Like we've seen, like, with more of the sophisticated cartoons now, there are adult jokes, but it's mostly suitable for children, which I don't think Roger Rabbit quite was. Yeah. It would be cool if it kind of took on that kind of vibe.
All right. Wow.
Yeah.
Is Randy Newman going to do the soundtrack?
Of course. Yeah, he has to. He has to.
All right. Interesting. I would not have expected you to go that route.
Yeah, I think that would be really fascinating.
Roger Rabbit. Okay. All right. So my number one, and I'm actually really excited about this. And if anybody has any Hollywood connections out there, please make this movie.
Yeah.
Before it's too late. So we talk about James Cameron a lot.
We do
on this podcast.
Yeah.
Mostly in bad ways. Because we have things like Avatar and Titanic and
I like Titanic actually.
well, you're
It's
wrong.
got its issues.
But yeah, no, I'm just kidding. So we're not big modern day James Cameron fans.
No.
But
I do
back
like Terminator.
in the day,
Terminator was awesome.
Terminator's awesome. Terminator 2 was awesome. True
Terminator's
Lies
good.
was great.
True Lies is good.
But in my opinion, the best movie that James Cameron ever made is The Abyss
Oh, The Abyss, sure.
from 1989 with Ed Harris. So just a quick little bit of context again in case people haven't seen The Abyss.
Yeah. You're going to have to remind me because it's been a long time.
Sure, I'll remind you. So there's this deep sea operation going on. I can't remember if they're drilling or exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
Ed Harris leads the group, and he is with one of the people on the crew is his wife, although they're estranged. Mm-hmm. His wife, Lindsay. Ed Harris plays Virgil Bud Brigman.
Okay.
Bud Brigman, they call him.
It's a really good name for Ed Harris.
And then Michael Biehn is in it because it's a James Cameron film, and you have to have Michael Biehn in a James Cameron film. And he plays...
He's like J.J. Abrams' Greg Grunfeld.
Exactly, Greg Grunberg.
Grunberg, yeah.
So the premise of this movie is basically they're doing this operation underwater, and they start encountering all of these crazy things and supernatural things. There's a snake made of water that comes into their apparatus. There's giant jellyfish and stuff like that. People do start to die. Only one person dies from like being attacked by something,
Okay.
which is like a giant fish, or I don't remember exactly, or a squid or something like that.
Okay.
But they're encountering all this phenomena.
Yep.
And the real villainy of it is Michael Biehn. He's like a military character, and he's a little off his rocker, and he gets worse as he's down there. I think the pressure messes with his brain and makes him crazier. But they have a warhead down there, and he's gonna just blow it up because it's clear that they've encountered
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
some sort of being down there,
yeah.
and they don't know what it is.
Right.
And so, I'm trying to recollect this as I go. So Ed Harris has to dive into this trench, into this abyss. Like I still remember the trailer of it. There's a guy that says 2.5 miles straight down, you know? And so he has to go down there to get this submersible that they sent out to get data and stuff like that. They have to bring that back.
Okay.
But it's so deep that it's dangerous. And so they are monitoring him as he goes down there. At this point, Michael Biehn's been killed. Like all the craziness has changed. And he gets down there and they lose him. They lose touch with him. And as he's going down, he's talking to his wife about how he wishes that they were reconciled. And it's clear that there's still love between the two of them, you know? And so you think he's going to die. But then he gets saved by these beings that exist under there. And they've come to call them NTIs, which is non-terrestrial intelligence.
Got it.
But we never know. Are they actually aliens?
Right.
Were they there before we were? We never know any of that. And in the theatrical version of the movie, they just interact with him a little bit and talk. They communicate, and they save his life. And eventually they raise their ship out from under the ocean, and he comes out of it triumphantly and gets reunited with his wife.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. The director's cut is completely different.
Really?
And this is one of the movies where the director's cut, it's like Batman versus Superman. Like, you just have to watch the director's cut.
Oh, okay.
Because it gives you more motivation for the creatures.
Right.
So in the director's, in the original movie, they show video footage to Virgil of people hurting each other and of wars and stuff like that. And then it's his connection to his wife and the recording of him talking to his wife that ultimately makes them save him.
Yeah.
But in the director's cut, they go way farther than that. They actually create these giant tsunamis designed to take out the world.
Yeah.
And they're going to kill everybody.
Oh,
and because they think we're killing each other. So they're going to wipe out the hate.
Okay.
And then he stops them from doing that by showing the love between him and his wife.
Got it.
And so that's the original movie.
Okay.
So now, fast forward to the future. And the creatures have started to show themselves again because the world just keeps getting worse, right?
Yeah.
We're just at war with each other. It just gets worse and worse.
So it's true to life.
It's true to life.
Yeah.
And they're starting to make their whereabouts known. And so now there's this like militarized scientific operation under deep sea
Okay.
to discover what their intentions are. We learn that they're not aliens. They've been here longer than we have. They're like an ancient undersea race.
Okay.
And one of the operatives on this team, played by Chris Evans,
Oh, nice.
is Daniel Brigman, Bud's son.
Okay.
And as he starts to realize that these are the same creatures and everything, and things are just not going well, he decides to bring his father back in hopes that he can talk to them. But they are estranged. Like, they don't get along well. His wife has died a long time back.
Okay.
They don't talk to each other. So we bring Ed Harris back.
Okay.
And kind of the same thing, like through them reconciling, the aliens see that.
Sure.
But we make this one bigger than the last one. We see more of them. We see ships, maybe even battles.
Wow.
And stuff like that. And I don't want James Cameron to be involved anymore, so we're going to have Joseph Kosinski direct this.
Oh,
who directed? Yeah, he's one of my favorites. He did Oblivion and Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
And Only the Brave.
Oh, he would be a good choice.
So,
although we need to see Only the Brave first.
yeah.
I do like that.
It comes out today, so
Oh, does it really?
we could just go see it
there
right
you go.
after
There
this.
you go.
So that's my number one, The Abyss.
I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, so let's go through some honorable mentions, and then we'll try and figure out which ones of each other's are the favorites that should get made.
And maybe we'll see what Jason
Yeah,
thinks
we'll
as
ask Jason too.
Okay.
We'll ask Jason what he thinks. Jason, for those of you who don't know, is our filmer of this podcast. Let's go through honorable mentions then. Do you want to go first?
Well, we talked about Breakfast Club. You had some crazy idea for Breakfast Club.
Well, Breakfast Club, like, I think that it would have been interesting to see some of those characters come back and be like confined in some sort of space again.
Yeah.
And then have to try to figure their way out. So to make it geek would be a little bit difficult, but maybe they're confined in a space that, again, it's like a CGI world or something like that where they have to get out of that space. So one of the reasons it didn't make my list is because I actually did not have any good ideas of what to do with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of my honorable mentions for sure.
You could just put them all in traffic school.
That would be hilarious. Maybe not geek, but hilarious.
I thought of Spaceballs kind of at the last minute.
Oh, nice.
The one I was gonna go with was Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Oh, sure.
a sequel to the film,
Yeah.
the original movie. So, and it would have been this whole different thing where there's a new Slayer and she has to go find Christy Swanson and whatnot. And
Right.
So that was one of my other possibilities.
Yes, I like that. I dig that.
I thought about stuff as crazy as like E.T.
Oh, I thought
Like,
about
do
E.T.
you go back to
I
E.T.?
thought about E.T. as well. Yep. It actually didn't make my honorable mentions, though.
I used to think that The Last Starfighter was a good option,
Yeah.
but I recently rewatched The Last Starfighter, and it just, man, it wasn't
No
as
good.
good as I thought it
Oh,
was.
bummer.
So,
Just really quick here, some of mine. The Usual Suspects.
really?
Did not figure out how to put it on there. 'Cause I love that film. I think that
Yeah.
film's amazing, but I could not figure out how to make it geek.
That ending is so good. It almost seems like if you continue it, you
Well, it almost has to be
compromise
done
it.
in a different way. Like
Yeah.
like you're leaving Kaiser Sose alone, and you're like moving on.
Okay.
Right. Groundhog's Day.
Yeah, I thought about that one.
Groundhog's Day, I think, would be really fascinating if his wife was now dying, and he wanted to find a way to relive every day.
Yeah.
So he hates reliving every day in the first one, but what if he wanted to relive every day?
Yeah.
And had like a sci-fi component to it there, I think would be interesting.
Or you could just recast him, have Tom Cruise play him, and then he has to fight aliens every day. Just an idea.
Live, die, repeat.
Yeah.
Groundhog's
Something
Day.
like that.
Yeah. 12 Monkeys is on there.
Yeah, I thought about 12 Monkeys.
12 Monkeys is really fascinating. I think there's actually a TV show or something that's coming out with 12 Monkeys. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was already out. I don't know if it was any good.
Yeah, I don't know either. I thought you could make a geek version of Apollo 13 and bring back some
Really?
of those astronauts and have them
I love that
going to
movie.
Mars or something.
Okay.
Something along those lines. Fight Club is another one I thought you could
Fight
throw in there.
Club.
You know, you could have
There
a
is
Fight Club geek movie.
There's a graphic novel sequel to Fight Club.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. Time Bandits.
Oh my gosh, Time Bandits.
One of the reasons I did not put Time Bandits on there is I could not remember the plot. I'm like, I actually don't even know what happened. So
Most of those guys might be dead by now too.
I
don't
think
know.
probably that's true. One of my favorites, probably my favorite. This is the last one I had on here. Was the Maltese Falcon, I think that would be a really cool one to do, but like kind of a new take on it. And maybe the actual Falcon has some supernatural properties to it that we didn't know about before, something like that. Like that would be really cool. So those are my honorable mentions. So
I thought about The Fifth Element also.
Ooh, The Fifth Element. Did that come out before 2000?
It was in the 90s.
Okay.
And I even thought about Top Gun, but they're actually doing Top Gun.
I know. I thought about that
Directed by Joseph Kosinski.
Nice.
And even like Days of Thunder. Like I sort of went through all my favorite 80s Tom Cruise movies. So
Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring in Jason then, and let's have Jason. Jason, as you've heard us talk about any of these movies, are there any of these movies that have stood out to you as being like, dude, that would be cool if there was a sequel to that film?
I was getting excited about The Goonies.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of have to get excited about The Goonies.
And I think what got me excited too about that movie was Stranger Things, the TV show.
Right?
Yes.
I even thought about having the Duffer Brothers direct it.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a little too on the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just something about watching a movie with kids in it and just their imagination. Another one of my favorite movies is The Sandlot.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just think it's so cool to see the way kids react to different situations and how we get caught up in their world, but like their parents or whatever, like they're just kids having fun. But like we get so like invested in these kids and like what they're thinking.
Totally.
And it might not be real, it might be real, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the new It movie?
I haven't seen that yet. Is it good?
I heard it's really good.
It feels like, what my roommate told me was, it is The Sandlot rated R.
So there you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, I would just love to see that. I think that'd be really cool. Yeah.
That would be
super
awesome.
Cool.
Cool. So now let's
that'd be my
choose the
favorite.
tops from the ones that we kind of fleshed out a little bit.
right.
So why don't you choose my top film
So we have Princess Bride, Roger Rabbit,
and The Game?
and The Game.
You can do this one too, Jason.
sweet.
I want to hear what you think is his best and my best.
Okay.
I'd go with The Game.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Bring back
I'd
Michael
be
Douglas?
intrigued to see that.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think it would be really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so of yours, give me yours again.
The Abyss, The Goonies, and Spaceballs.
I'm going to go with Spaceballs because I think there's lots of comedy there. I think there's lots of opportunity for comedy on that. Because, we haven't seen... The only spoofs that we've really seen are the Scary Movie, like that whole crew that's done those. And they try to bring, like, a little bit of a gross out to it and stuff like that. I would love to see, though, like, more of a classic take of, like, the slapstick kind of ridiculousness of Spaceballs and add that into a modern day kind of environment. I think that'd be really, really interesting. So that'd be my choice. What about
For you, Jay?
Yeah, for me.
Yeah, The Princess Bride.
Yeah?
I'd like to see that.
See a sequel to that? That'd be
I
really cool.
just think it's like a classic movie and it'd be cool to see it. You're right.
I read that there's the screenwriter of The Princess Bride is like in his 80s, right? And he's like, I still haven't thought of a good story to tell after
No way.
That's pretty awesome.
Yep, that's crazy. And also The Abyss.
Yeah?
I haven't seen it.
Oh.
But after
I ruined a little bit of it for you.
after
but it's worth
describing it,
Yeah.
I always love water, like anything with water in movies. So cool.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's not a lot of movies that have done it well.
Right.
That's
true.
I mean, Jaws was awesome, but
Yeah, most of them are like horror movies.
Yeah,
And
but-
this is not.
yeah,
Some
and
of
they
it
get
feels that way,
cheesy.
but it's not.
Yeah.
And I know, like, I get it, like it's production costs and stuff to like
Right.
filming on water and
Yeah.
like whatever. But when it's done, like Life of Pi, like all filmed
that's a
on
great
like
movie. I
it's
love
just
that
so
movie.
cool when you can like
Yeah.
do stuff with
Waterworld.
And there's Waterworld. It's just cool when you can. It's just like it's mysterious too because like we don't really know that world underwater.
Exactly.
And I just think it's cool like when you can do it well in a movie.
There's not much left of the world that has not been explored, but there's still underwater areas that we haven't really touched.
Yep.
So that's cool.
I think that's really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, so sweet.
That's awesome.
Well, I think that'll do it for this one. This was really fun. I like this format.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's fun to kind of come up with new creative ideas.
Yeah.
And then to explore those a little bit.
And you guys out there, if there's anything you want to hear us hash it out about, or whatever the name of this podcast ends up being, send us ideas, let us know.
You know what someone's going to do? Someone's going to suggest Event Horizon.
We have to talk about it. I just don't want to watch Event Horizon again.
I know. There's going to be a sequel. They're going to try and troll us with that.
Yeah. All right. Especially now that you brought it up.
Well, yeah, true.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We'll see you guys on the next podcast.
Or YouTube. Thanks for watching.
Yep.